Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me such great pleasure to introduce a dear, dear friend of mine, a powerful practitioner, and just a beautiful person in a beautiful light. I'd like to introduce you to Maria Muir. And from a young age, Maria Muir has always danced to her own beat, outside the box. In her teenage years, Maria played with crystals and earth gems, unbeknownst to her that they were waiting to take her true role through her practice in service to others. Over the decades, while pursuing a mainstream career, Maria's soul cried for more purpose. A successful 30-year career in the film industry left her feeling lost and unfulfilled, longing for more life. Her soul opened the door to pursuing healing arts and spiritual development. Native American teachings and plant medicines were the first participants in Maria's healing arts training and self-development. A sharp turn in Maria's private life created a pivot towards fully encompassing the healing arts and evolve into her mission to share knowledge and energy healing with others. Maria offers vibrational energy medicine both in person and remotely. Excited that science is now supporting ancient healing methods, Maria integrates cutting-edge technology and ancient knowledge and wisdom. Her extensive knowledge and intuition create an unprecedented vibrational energy healing experiences to meet each person's unique expression, leading to healing on all levels of being. Maria's mission is to guide people seeking access to a higher level of being and helping people turn up their inner light and raise their vibration, creating a better environment and a vision for self-healing and a life full of zest, luster, and vitality. So, welcome, Maria, to our platform, to the Infinite Way.
Wow, Anolia, thank you so much. Thank you. So delighted to be here. And it's an infinite way, isn't it?
Yes, it is the infinite way. And it really, really excites me because you're here to talk about energy medicine. And I love that because we've known each other for years.
Yes.
And we've actually seen each other in so many different ways. And I think it's really important for people to understand the navigation through your journey of life in terms of how energy medicine was first introduced to you. So why don't you share a little bit?
Okay. I believe that energy medicine was probably introduced to me before I even knew what it was. In my bio, as you read, like at a young age, that the crystals showed up. I was a teenager, my first book on crystals, maybe I was 14. And at that time, under my parents' roof, that wasn't really something that was encouraged to pursue. It's like, go to college, get a job, get the house with the white picket fence, work, work in something that's real.
Real. Yeah, in those terms.
Yes. And so it took doing all those things, college, a job, and realizing that, is this all there is? That I started seeking other things, and other things started appearing to me. I was probably in my mid to late 20s, and moved 2,000, 3,000 miles away from that box. That got me to put my feelers out and invite in these other energies. And Native American teachings, I got to the West and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. there's something else. A friend of mine was married to a Native American, and it was interesting to me, and I started exploring. And one thing
Mhm.
led to another, and now there's this whole big tool bag of medicine that I get to access. It's truly phenomenal. So many options out there. And
So, so knowing that you grabbed a hold of Native American teachings, where did that progress you to? Because I met you when you were, I've experienced some of your teachings, which are absolutely beautiful. They are so, so beautiful in your workshops. And to encounter that and to feel it is just to feel the light in every way. But talk about where that Native American and those traditions branched you to, because it's funny because you know that I came up with Native American experience also. So talk
right.
about that a little bit.
Well, so my friend was married to this gentleman, and whether she had a deck, or it was just said, get this deck. I bought a deck of medicine cards that were animal cards. I don't know that I even have it here. I still have it, but it was my first oracle, let's say. And I worked with those cards and pulled those cards. And interestingly, I ultimately, years later, by accident, but nothing's by accident really, fell into going to Peru and following the Four Winds program and protocol, and working on working with shamans and shamanism and bringing that into my life and ultimately my practice. In between that, there was a big spread where I worked with plant medicines and essential oils. And for years, like, I was at a bookstore and literally this book fell on off the shelf and into my hands, and I got it, you know, and went into that before I went into the shamanism. And I think they go hand in hand, whether it's essential oils or a cacao or a ayahuasca or San Pedro medicine that you're working with. It's a vehicle to get us to that same place, to that higher state where we can access source and access creation and access our higher self, and possibly learn what we came here to do. I think we all get to that place in our lives where, for me anyways, I don't know, everybody's different or all individuals, but for me it was like, really, is this it? And at the
Yeah.
time I was in the film industry and still trying to break out of that box um, that I was ingrained in my youth. And so the exploration started really with an unhappy. I had a great career, don't get me wrong, and there was a lot of good parts of it, but my soul, my inner knew, and whether I really knew what that was in that moment, it was pushing me to other things, and spirit was throwing books or medicine cards or the Four Winds into my path. The Four Winds wasn't, I didn't even, they were in Park City for 14 years before I even knew who the heck they were. Right in my
Yeah.
backyard. I
Yeah.
wasn't ready.
I
I was,
stumbled over them too.
I wasn't ready until I was, till spirit realized I was ready or knew I was ready or my mind was ready, whatever part of me was ready to take that fork on the journey, you know, one big
Yeah.
road with a lot of forks.
Yeah. So let's talk about energy. Let's talk about the energy because you actually have worked with the energy in so many different ways. I mean, to be able to tap into your knowledge, we would really be here a long time. But I remember when you first started and you were helping people cross over.
Mhm.
And that was it for a while. You were really, really uh, uh, unbelievable in the way that you approach death and the energy of release and lifting people up and working with people that were ready to pass over. Share with us a little bit about that.
Well, it's still one of my favorite ways to work. It's one of the most gratifying things that I've experienced is to help somebody take that final greatest journey that they'll ever take. I often say it's the only journey you don't need to pack a suitcase for. In fact, you want your suitcase to be quite empty because when you cross over that bridge to the other side, what you haven't resolved in this lifetime, you're going to come back and try to get it right. So let's try to figure that out now and empty as many things out of that suitcase as we can. In other words, complete any pieces that we may have come to work on in this lifetime, because it's easier to do it here. That's why we've come. It's easier to do it here than it is to get on the other side, call it heaven or wherever you want to call it, to the cosmos and go, darn, I didn't quite get that right. I'm going to have to go back and do it again. When we come back the next lifetime, we want to experience new things. It's all steps in evolving our soul to this highest level of energy, to creator, to oneness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the death work, I was just really good at it. And interestingly, when I was 16 years old, my grandmother died, my dad's mother, and she was 80 years old and didn't suffer. And but it's still your grandmother and a loved one. And in after the whole services and graveside and whatnot, we come back to the house and everyone comes back to the house and there's food and beverage and stories that told. And in the shamanic practices, we call that kitchen talk. And
Yeah.
I was just very good at the one to answer the phone and give the news, or the one to make sure someone's eating or drinking or sleeping. And I was just not fallen apart by the fact that my grandmother was passed. Of course, I was sad. But I saw it as, I don't know that I knew this at the time, but I didn't see it as such a bad thing. And my father said to me in the kitchen, you should be a doctor. I'm like, what? And he said, you'd be good at telling people they're going to die. You have no emotions. And I was like, huh. And in my 16-year-old mind, I thought, I don't want to go to school for 8 more years. And he goes,
Right.
my dad wanted a doctor in the family, so anything. How about pharmacy? I'm like, nah, that's still a long time still to go to school. But what he didn't see, I was strong in those moments. And what he didn't see was maybe going to bed at night, I might cry myself to sleep because I'm sad that I lost my
Right.
grandmother. But in the
Right.
moment of the tragedy or the loss or whatever, I could be the pillar and the strength. And he saw that. He thought I had no emotions, so is what he said. Years later, when I recount that story to him, he's like, I never said that. I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely said that, because that stuck with me. But he didn't say it in a bad way. It was just what came out of his mouth at the time. And I didn't really put much in it in the moment, but years later, when I look back and recall that story, I go, oh, he was right. And I don't know that necessarily I would have made a good doctor, because I feel like I would have had to break out of that Western model, and maybe that would have been good. But again, those 8 years, I wasn't a good student, so I don't know. But I have found later that I fell into the four winds after one of my very dear friends died at the age of 44, was given 2 weeks to live. She lived for 5. And from that moment of diagnosis till the last day, I was with her every day. And in the meantime, I was going to pick up my farm share from my other friend that worked for the Four Winds. And one day
Right.
it was in a different spot, and pick it up, and I couldn't find the coolers, and I'm like, where is this place? And I walk through the door, and there's this young man sitting at the desk, and behind him this like 8-foot gold Shiva statue. And I was like, cool, what's this place? And
Yeah.
my friend that worked there gave me some information, and I just couldn't. It took me a little while till I got to the point of, okay, I'm ready to take some classes. And I took some classes.
Right.
Everything was, oh, Brenda would have loved this. Everything we were doing, pulling medicine cards every day while she was, you know, battling, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And when we got to the point of the East work, and well, the West work and facing the death of our ego, and then the East work facing the death of our physical, and those things, it was so powerful to me that I rearranged the wheel, the medicine wheel that we are going around, in order to take the living and dying consciously work, which I now teach as a course.
Yes.
But it was natural to me. It just came really naturally, and I gravitated towards it. And it's still something that I do, but it was a lot of times I always wanted to get to people like you and I at our
Yeah.
age. We don't have a
Right.
terminal diagnosis, but it's still really important. And what I found and find still is nobody really wants to talk about it. It's getting better in this day and age, that people are accepting it more, and we're not just putting our old people in nursing homes and forgetting about them, that we're allowing grandma to come die at home more and more so. But it's still a taboo that people are a little bit afraid of, and I feel like it's an unknown. So let's get to know death, and let's get to befriend death, so that when we come to that last breath, we're not afraid, and that just makes the transition so much easier for everybody,
Right.
for those that
Right.
are left behind. And so it is, we're inviting energies from other dimensions to come help us in that moment.
Exactly.
And there's so much.
There's a lot to it, and I don't profess to be as proficient at it as you are in terms of helping people over. I can count on one hand the few people that I've helped, but there are phases as that person is transitioning when they're half in this world and half in the next world. But people think that they're talking gibberish. And if you just befriended and understood what was taking place in the phases, you'd understand that there happened the spirit world, there happened this world, that I like to call it timelessness, and they're half and half, and they're seeing what's taking place over there, and they're seeing what's taking place over here, and the veil is just up. There's no in between. There's no one or the other. Like we all like to see it that way because it makes us feel safe, and we love that boundary. We always love to put boundaries there because when the boundary is lifted, we don't know how to take in all of the information that's being presented to us. And really, that's what it boils down to. We don't like taking it all in, so therefore we set the boundaries of fear to say, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that. It scares me a little bit one alone. And it's just like, no, let's have this conversation. Let's see where it takes you. And let's understand that that transition is beautiful. I've been reading a little bit about the Barda Total, and I hope I'm saying that right, which is the Buddhist viewpoint of looking at death. And in reading that and reviewing that, they embrace truly getting to know death in every stage of it, and every entrance of it, and every dimension of it. so that you know what to say and how to say and repeat this particular verse as you are dying, so that you make your statement of what you want as you're transitioning instead of going in fear. And I thought that that was absolutely fascinating. Fascinating to be able to be proactive about it versus reactive about it. So there's a lot there. And I want to share that, but I want you to keep going on your journey. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's a
what's
lot.
next? Because I know it
Yeah.
is.
Just to wrap that part up, as I just like to say to people is, you know, there's so many resources to assist if you're trying to assist a loved one or
Yeah,
even yourself. There's so much out there for help these days and so many organizations. And when those energies from the other side come in as the loved ones that have crossed and gone before, or it sounds like your loved one's talking gibberish, don't try to snap them out of it. Roll with it. My mother's like, he's going to Mazzarelli's, and I'm like, yeah, why? Well, we did that every Sunday after church. I'm like, ask him if he's getting cheese, like play into it, and
yeah,
then it will make more sense. They're
yeah.
reliving one of the biggest things, we call it recapitulation, and it's that trip down memory lane. And that trip down memory lane is what happens. People often talk about, people that have died and come back often talk about that life review that happens so fast.
Happen.
You can
Mm-hmm.
take that life review as people are laying there on their last days, and really it can be so healing. So healing. It doesn't, the other person, if there was a conflict with another person, that other person doesn't have to be there or respond energetically in the field of the person that is crossing. If they, in their mind really, but in their energy, have that resolve, it's clear. The other person doesn't need to be there. So there is a lot of help and a lot of resources out there on the physical, on the emotional, on the spiritual, on the mental. Just reach out for those resources for sure. So that was a big part.
Absolutely.
That was a big part of my journey, and it still is. I mean, I get very passionate about that work. I am still very passionate about that work. And you know, the and it's hard work, the physical part of helping somebody cross, and the
It
nurses
is hard work.
are so important and so kind and such a big thing. And I did go and took a certified nursing assistant course so that I could have I felt that in order to go, and I went and worked hospice under a traditional sense as sort of a
Yes.
research project of what do these people need that from a shamanic perspective we can bring in. I thought it would be good to have that bit of credential,
Uh-huh.
because as the shaman, it's like, well, who are you? And you're not a doctor. My dad would like to say that. Well, you're not a doctor. I'm not, but um that I thought that it would help, and it did, and it didn't. What it helped was for me to get into those families and see firsthand what was happening and understand how
Right.
to build a workshop or a course, or what other elements that were the most important things, like giving permission or asking forgiveness or telling your
Right.
loved one that everything's going to be okay, to go ahead. In fact, the night that my dad passed, my mom was she really wasn't sitting vigil. And she came down and she thought she heard a noise. I go, why don't you sit here? I need to go call my husband. And she came running out. I'm on the phone like 5 or 10 minutes later. I think he's gone. And I go back in, and he was, and it's really interesting when you see somebody when their essence is gone. You don't need a stethoscope. It's like it's a
No, you
complete
don't.
different
It's a
look.
difference in the
There is
you, the skin,
everything.
yipping,
And
everything.
she had told me that she had said to him, God is waiting for you with open arms. And, that was her way, or that was the permission that he needed. And off he went.
Hmm.
And so it was just quite beautiful. Me, on the other hand, I was really upset. I thought with everything that I knew, I was going to be there, and the ceiling was going to open, and the angel, this whole thing, I was going to
Yes.
his body lift off, and I wasn't there, and I was ready. But the next day, Spirit really showed me when I went to the beach and took a swim, and it was incredible what I was shown as far as the veil, and what we talk
Yes.
about the veil being thinner. It
Hmm.
really is um, something to behold. Colors that I don't know even exist on this planet. And it's like, the big heavy velvet curtain that closes, and sometimes comically you see like the guy back there looking for the how to get out
Coming
the front.
through.
So
Yes.
it's like the curtains open, and as the full moon is starting to wane, and that curtain's starting to close, and getting these folds are getting thicker and thicker and harder to navigate through. But really, it was shown to me as almost this transparent with lots of symbology and lots of, I'm like, oh, wow. It was just like, for 4 days, we went through that as I guided my dad through, um,
Right.
getting him to where he needed to go. So I don't want to stay on that subject all too long, but it's really just
It
magical.
is. It is.
It's magic.
Well, where would you like to go then from here? Because there's a number of subjects that we could talk about. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm inviting you back because I want to be explore some of these things with you. Let's talk about where science meets energy, and it's finally starting up. Why don't you talk a little bit about biogeometry?
Okay. Before we step into that, I just want to say that their energy is everything, or everything is energy.
Everything is
Right?
energy.
Like there's a Nikola
Absolutely.
Tesla quote out there that's become very popular in recent years, and Tesla's becoming popular in recent years. He was a pioneer, and everything is energy. And even if it seems like an inanimate object, that wood came from a living thing. And so how do we exist in this world, and how do we raise our vibration, right, to energy medicine? Like, what is energy medicine? My answer to that question, because it's a very broad subject also, that
Yes.
it's what gets you to that higher state and higher level of vibration. We know that things, let's just talk about words on water for a moment, that Emoto researched all those years back, that
Masaru.
love
Yes.
makes a water crystal beautiful, where the word hate makes it all jumbled and horrible. Well, which one do you want to drink, right? So
Right.
and feelings of happiness are this higher vibration that has been measured by science. This is not woo-woo. This is something scientific. If you go to the Heart Math Institute, or there's lots of research projects out there, biogeometry, one of them, for the last 50 years. That
And I want to pause you just for a second because people need to understand what you're saying. So if you go to the Heart Math Institute, you're going to find that heart actually has brain activity, neurons, neutrons. It thinks. Our heart thinks. It's not just that our brain thinks. Okay. So a lot of people like get out of your heart, go into your head. No, get out of your head, go into your heart. Your heart can actually lead you body that actually moves you and navigates you through life. And people don't understand understand Heart Math Institute encompasses. So I just wanted to pause and at least say that much.
Yes, thank you. Because it is the brain of the heart. And it
Yes.
is to come from this place that will get us to the path that we should be walking in our authentic self and
Right.
following the heart. It might not seem like the right thing in our mind, but sometimes, and this I think is the hardest part for a lot of people, to put that aside and go what doesn't seem logical, and surrendering and allowing. It's almost like people may be more comfortable with me saying, follow your gut. I just have
Mm-hmm.
this funny feeling, or I have this feeling, I don't know why, this is what I should do. Yes, you do have that feeling, and to trust that, I think, is the hardest thing in this day and age, because, like my dad would say, who says so? And a lot of times I would answer, well, ancient Chinese medicine for the last 5,000 years. And he would go, oh, okay. Because they
Yes.
knew something, and acupuncture's been a real thing, and people have gotten results. And I think in the modern day, that's what the modern human kind of wants to see, is the results. And because they don't trust. They don't trust
Right.
themselves. They don't trust the media. They don't trust the government. They don't trust each other. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. So how do we get back to that place? First off, you have to raise your own vibration so that you attract that same vibration. You want to be, and you're attracted to that higher vibration. So like finds like, law of attraction, right? This is why you and
Right.
I found each other. I like to
That's right.
say penguins find penguins, right? It's this, we hang out with our own kind. So who do you want to hang out with? You want to hang out with those light, airy beings of happiness and joy. If you walk in a room and you see a bunch of people laughing and giggling, or a bunch of people arguing, which one are you going to be attracted to? Hopefully the laughing and giggling, right? And
Right.
we'll get in the argument. So hopefully. So I want to just point out that there's a lot of ways to raise that vibration, from just even meditation and quieting the mind, and trying to be in that space of nothingness. Really hard in today's modern world, with so much technology keeping us busy all the time. How do we balance that? By quieting the mind. How about music? Music soothes the savage beast. Well, yeah, it does. Think about that old saying, music soothes the savage beast. We'll turn
Yes.
on some beautiful music. It doesn't even need to have words, just, you know, listening to Bach for babies, the thing, the science that's been behind the pregnant mother listening to this music, and the baby in the womb, like that beautiful, or being born to that, or just it putting you in a good mood. What's that going to do? That's going to raise your vibration. So from music, then you can get even fine tune it into tuning forks that are targeting specific energy centers that would make you feel more grounded or connected, or in the heart space, or open up your throat chakra so you can speak your truth, or
Right.
crystal bowls that will get you in the same place, or essential oils that will get you in the same place because it's triggering a response, or an herbal tea that will get you in that same place. Or there's just so many things that there's a big chart that, if I'll have prepared the next time we talk, that shows all these different modalities and where they cross, and this chart gets into a frequency. Okay, so
Of
everything.
course, because that's what every single one of these things have in common, is a frequency, a
Correct.
vibrational frequency that affords the opportunity. So when a plant is releasing its smell, it's releasing it at a certain frequency so that it taps into you, and then you respond to it and you respond to that smell, and you respond to that, the energy that it is releasing, so that's where you cross. That's where the two of you meet. The same thing with your tuning forks. I always like to refer back to Dr. John Verlew with the human tuning, because when you talked about the energy centers, and I just want to break it down a little bit for our audience to make sure that they stay with us, that the human tuning actually vibrates, the tuning forks vibrate as the same energy center of certain organs within you. And that's why your organs or your body parts actually respond to it. And when they hear the correct frequency, even if they're off, they rise back to the frequency that they typically would vibrate at. It hears, and that's where they cross the frequency. It hears the frequency that it wants to be in balance to. And so it actually self-corrects for that period of time. And so all of these things that you mentioned, all of these modalities have the frequency as its common denominator, the vibrational frequency as its common denominator across the board. I love this. Please, please, please keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So that frequency is like an energetic signature. And really it's a quality, right? And we come into resonance when we can meet a frequency or a quality. There's a resonance that if the body, let's say, is out of balance in some way, let's say it's my liver, and because there are scientists out there that have mapped, Dr. Guy Manners in the early 1900s started mapping the energetic states of the organs and different body parts, hundreds and hundreds of points, or I'm at a loss for a word there. Dr. Guy Manners mapped all these frequencies of a healthy human body. And
yes,
that research has been taken and brought further into the modern world. And its resonance that he found, he was creating all kinds of machines and trying to work in that. So let's say we have something in the body that's out of balance, but the healthy, let's talk about sound, because that's one way to get there, right?
right.
Sounds like this. And your body's doing and if you keep pumping because the organ recognizes that as its original healthy code, and you keep pumping, there's ways to do that we'll get into another time, but you keep pumping that into the body, eventually the shifts.
That's right.
And the more you can do that and get it to that point, that's when we reach the balanced state. And then, because the body is intelligent and can heal itself, but it sometimes needs some help because it's been out of resonance for so long, it gets stuck in this other place. And so we have all these tools to bring it back to that balanced state and then come to center. Now, you'd mentioned biogeometry, which is a big, big, deep subject, but it is it's a science of quality. And it's really about this quality of center. And, what we're doing in biogeometry is creating the energy that is found at all the sacred power spots, that is the doorway that accesses the divine and that connection. And from there, everything is possible.
Excellent.
That's a door to a big, big subject.
And you know what? I can't believe this. We are already almost an hour, and we haven't even scratched the surface yet. That's right. So I'm going to say this: we're going to keep going with this conversation until we've exhausted it. If you are willing to come back and talk a little bit more introducing energy medicine to our audience as you see it. I would love to have you back. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Absolutely. So what would you, okay, we talked extensively about crossing. What would you leave with our audience in terms of something really, really knowledgeable to assist them when they are working with someone who is in essence dying?
If you are really in that position, if your loved one is conscious, the biggest advice I have is take that walk down memory lane. You don't need to have been there. You could say, it's easy. You could say, oh, remember when we were on that trip, XYZ? Or what's that story you told me about your brother and you when you were kids? And then let it go and let that person just go. And you'd be amazed at some of the things that come up and get healed. And the other thing I would say in any of it, whether it's that situation or your own path and healing, follow your heart. This is my best advice is follow your heart. Don't question it. Follow your heart.
I think that is so important. Thank you so much. And please take the time to let people know how they can get in contact with you, what you offer, because I think it's imperative for people to know what you offer and how they can reach out to you.
The best thing to do would start with my website, which is www.mariamuir.com. And Maria is spelled like Maria, I think everywhere in the world, Maria. And there's a second A, which is my middle initial, and Muir is MUIR.com. On there, you could see my offerings. The biggest thing that I like to offer is meeting somebody where they are. You don't have to be advanced and already know all these things. I have programs for everybody, and I would like to meet you wherever you are on your path and guide you to bringing that light onto your path and creating that brilliance in you and allowing you to walk your best life possible, full of vigor and zest. I forget what it says on my on my slide, but with joy. How do you just do that every day amongst all the chaos in our everyday world? What's that there's something that you can find that can get you to that place that's easy, super easy. I have super easy little tricks that we've all done already. So you don't have to find it and try so hard on your own. I'll give you the cheat sheet.
There you go.
There's
Yeah.
there's plenty to get started in easy. It doesn't have to be hard.
Maria, thank you so, so much. Thank you for your time. Where does the time go? I'm so grateful that we'll have a part 2 and possibly 3, 4, 5. And I want to talk a little bit more about energy medicine from the shamanistic point of view, as we are both shamans. And I also want to get into the broad topic of biogeometry and the different aspects that people can learn about and what's available and how it assists in our lives. So there's a lot there, and
there's
we're going to than the surface on this. So thank you again.
Thank you, Enolia. Always a pleasure. I love your smiling face and so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. And what a gift you are to the world. And the one thing that I want to leave the audience with, because we said we're all looking for our purpose. And I actually wanted to comment on this earlier when you actually said it. And we're all trying to find our purpose. And I have always felt that we all have at least one purpose that we should be well aware of while we're here on this earth, that at least hold our light, at least be present like a lighthouse, hold your vibration, hold it to a positive, beautiful space so that you can grow and so that you can explore and expand. But at a minimum, hold your light. And that's why you're here, because each of us is a light in this world. And then we take it from there wherever we want to go. So, on that note, this has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And thank you again, Maria Muir, for joining us.
Thank you all for listening.
Okay, take care for now. Bye-bye.